There we are. Good morning, everybody. We are live. Welcome to Defying Expectations Over 60, where we talk to amazing seniors, of which I am one, who are making a difference in the world when society kind of expects them to be slowing down. I am Suki Jeffries, best-selling author, behavioral superpowers coach, and retirement specialist. And I help women at or nearing retirement age to squeeze all the juice out of their retirement season, if you will. And my guest today is a new friend, Tawni Acosta. I found out she is a new neighbor of mine, so to speak. She's just bought a home in Phoenix, so we'll get a chance to meet each other in person, but she otherwise lives in Los Angeles, and she is a licensed hypnotherapist helping LGBTQ individuals live their most authentic life. So, Tawni, why don't you add to that and tell us what you're doing and how old you are?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having me here, and it's a pleasure to be here with you and your audience as well. So,
Thank you.
anyway, I am just this month, September, I turned 63.
Yay!
So,
We're the same age.
I know that's wonderful. And and all of us sometimes we hit this age and we're like, how did this happen? You know,
Yeah, the
how
numbers are
did
kind of stupid after a while.
yeah, how did I land here? I mean, and second of all, just to, how did I come into what I do
Mhm.
or how did that happen? So yeah, I sought a path, first why do I work within the communities that I work with? So first of all, I am a transgender woman.
Mhm.
So it means I was, you could say we use this term, it's called assigned male at birth.
Mhm.
So I lived a greater part of my life up until my 50s as a male. But
That's a
this is
good long time, Tawni.
it's a very long time. And
Right.
there's a lot that, there's a lot of difficulty that goes with that long time, a lot of trauma, all kinds of stuff. But
Hmm.
on the other side of it, I reached this point in my life where I was always fighting this issue or this inner compass, as it would be, always
Mm,
existed. It
mm.
was always there with me. I just came from a generation, which both of us belong to, where
Yes.
the understanding of what this is and what it was doesn't exist. Didn't exist for me, didn't exist for our family. So,
There was no vocabulary around it.
correct, there
Yeah.
was none. So I lived the life that I thought I should, that society thought we should. I lived the life that I thought would make me happy. Yet I got to a point in my life where continuing to live as I was just no longer became possible.
Mm.
And the difficult point and also a gift, maybe to say, I got to a point where it's hard to say, I almost became suicidal
Yeah.
because I was fighting who I was.
Yes. I I
On the
I
what on
can't
the
I can only imagine, um, I can only imagine the arguments you had with yourself over that.
It's the best way to put it.
Hmm.
And thankfully, at some point, and this is why I like to talk to people, and I could use the word therapist in a more general sense, is that, you know, it's never too late to be ourselves.
Oh, that is so
It's
true.
it's never too late to start on our own journey, whatever that is. And if retirement is that journey, that's great.
Yes.
I think in my case, and with many people, my greatest difficulty actually turned in to my reason for knowing that I had to go forward and be who I was and do that without compromise. And because I had such an extremely difficult point in my life, that it brought me to this point where I knew I had to go forward without any compromise. And that was a new experience. I didn't live my life that way. I lived a life of self compromise. And so,
Mm.
therefore, I had to learn the opposite. And so, doing all these things was an incredible, it's something that doesn't come overnight. It's something you
Right.
learn and acquire and practice and learn and
And
acquire and
practice and practice and practice. Yes.
exactly. So does that answer your question?
Yes, well, yeah, it does. And I love the that you shared that you came to your more authentic self when you were over 50. That you started to accept it and live your truth when you were over 50. And you also said it's never too late to find out who you are and what you need. And I strongly agree with that. We have certainly not as fundamental a transformation as you underwent, but one of the things that happened to me as I left my corporate job was I had to figure out again I had to reinvent my identity. Uh, like again, not as fundamentally as you did, but I had to reinvent who I believed I was. And I agree, it's never too late, to find what really sets you on fire and move forward.
Yeah, and it is interesting because I think, our identities evolve with time, and we have
Mhm.
different needs and different things and different, you know, desires as we go through each decade of our life.
Mm.
So I think that is also so the thing that we would have a different identity after we finish the career, as it were. That's a very profound thing because it's the same like, well, what do I do now? You
Mhm.
know, and
Mhm.
maybe I thought I would go into cozy retirement, but is that what it really is?
Yeah, right. Well, and you may have also, on the other side of it, you may have thought that you would go on living with the persona that you had developed over time. And
Yes.
it's like, well, you can't do it anymore. I'm interested in the can't do it anymore. Um, without sharing your deepest, darkest thoughts. I mean, what made you feel like you couldn't do that anymore?
Oh my
Eh,
God.
like
Okay,
what brought you
sure.
to that point? I'm so curious.
I think, okay, no, thank you. It's good to be curious. I think in my case, maybe it would be an extreme case, but I think we can relate to this all as human beings. In the cases, I started suffering from deep level anxiety,
Yeah.
and it started getting worse and worse and
Mhm.
worse. And so really that's like your inner core is just screaming out, or
Yep.
mine was. My
Yes.
inner core was just, and eventually what happened, it just was not, it became too painful
Mm.
to maintain the status quo that I was in. And so it's like you know, I, you know, or let me put it another way, there's a set of coping mechanisms that appear to be some positive, some negative,
Mm.
that I was doing to maintain my lifestyle at that time. At some point, all of them became unhealthy coping
Like
mechanisms.
burdensome and yeah,
Yes, and they no longer work.
it didn't work. Yeah.
And so I think at one point that was just like staggering to me, what I used to do to be positive didn't work. And
Right.
then the other thing is like, okay, it's just evident. I have no other choice than to be myself.
Yeah. Yes, and I think you're right, it is universal. I think that people in any situation where they're not living authentically will run into that anxiety at some point. Most people will, to varying levels. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I think it's, obviously my case is an extreme case, but the other case is really to listen to ourselves.
Mhm. Yes, and is that what you help your clients do?
Yes. Yes.
Oh.
And what I do, what I really love, what I found is I found this mode of hypnosis. It's called advanced conversational hypnosis. So it doesn't quite involve like the traditional things we associate with hypnosis, but it's all through a dialogue. And so, in a way of quote unquote helping my clientele, it eventually is an environment which evolves to a dialogue with the subconscious.
Oh my goodness.
And so
I
that
wish
can
I could
be
talk to mine and tell it, "Cut it out," sometimes.
yes, yes. But it's what I love what I do. Because
Mm.
it is so congruent with everything that I've done. It is so much in agreement. Originally, I was thinking about going into being kind of a traditional therapist.
Mm-hmm.
And I had a friend of mine who had a PhD in traditional therapy, and she just kind of talked me out of it.
Oh gosh. Interesting.
But
Interesting.
but I think it's like we get messages from our environment, we get messages from our life as we try to explore where
Mm-hmm.
we need to be. And
Sure.
so this is the place that I landed, and I really like it because in a way, um, it allows, if you think about how our subconscious or our greater conscious thinks,
Mm-hmm.
it thinks in different levels than our normal conscious thought is. And
Yes.
so it can think, so part of this,
Vibrational energy.
absolutely, absolutely. So our subconscious mind can think in all kinds of ways. It could think in thoughts, it could think in colors, it could think in music, it can think of in analogies or stories or anything. So in a lot of that, so when I'm working in a session, it's allowing their own subconscious mind to access their own resources in relationship to the problem,
Mm.
whatever the problem may be. And so, what's beautiful is as a therapist, I don't devise, I don't devise like, oh, okay, you have a problem with addiction. This means you have to do X, Y, and Z. No,
Exercises, right, right.
right. Rather, that a client gets to fit, their subconscious actually gets to figure out their own resources.
Mm.
And so, so in a way, why I'm passionate about it. It's very magical, because
Magical and I'm certain it's very powerful.
yes,
Yeah. It's when I'm dealing with the subconscious because I don't understand it very well, it's you're right. It is kind of it seems magical to me. Um, like how does it work? I work with an energy healer, and I've had sessions with her where I actually feel like my subconscious is coming to the surface, and it's kind of like knocking on the windows and the doors, and my head kind of spins a little bit. I'm like, I
right.
don't understand this, whatever it is, the thought, the energy, whatever, but I know something's happening.
Mhm. And I think, to continue that thought or that analogy in a way, what I do is, throughout life, we come to all these conclusions about our experiences.
Oh, of course. Yes.
Right. So in a way, what I do or what these things do, like you're sharing with your experience, is it kind of unravels those conclusions and
Mhm.
presents that there are now new options available.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of, this is what my mentor says. It's like if you got a new wardrobe and after a session, you now get to try on that new wardrobe every day. And some days are the wardrobe failure and other days are
Yes.
beautiful.
Yes.
And so that is it, one aspect of what we do is called processing. So as I give a session, then later, a client is going to process these things that is in a way unique to them. And so the
Yes.
big advice I have to offer is like, don't worry about it. This is normal. Just let it happen.
Let it
Don't it,
happen.
don't interfere with it because then it's gonna, we're gonna have to come back there and redo the whole thing again.
Yes, yes. And that it's hard to give up, one of the things I've got a book coming out, and one of the things I talk about is that a lot of these thoughts that are thoughts and, processes and ideas, things we think about ourselves are formed by the time we're like 7 years old. And, through experiences and things we heard and things we learned from other people and ourselves and all of that kind of stuff. And, um, it's like I if it's been in there for such a long time, sometimes the processing is hard because what your subconscious is saying and what your conscious is saying, they don't agree. And it's
Right.
like, the way those internal arguments occur is sometimes fascinating. I myself, I've heard myself say things that I've never said or even thought out loud before, but they're coming out of my mouth, I think, because I've been presented with new options, and I love that. Options are what allows us to move into our greatness, is
Mhm.
to choose to do something differently than we did before.
Yeah. And I think actually we kind of were talking about this, as it is people that are, you know, I'm 63, so are you.
Mhm.
And this is to address, those of us, in our quote unquote senior years. And I think even our entire conception of what that is and what retirement is and what
Oh,
that
yeah.
means has so radically changed just in a few generations. And
Mhm.
I think one thing that is so important, and it can be in the most straightforward, humble way ever, is just as we're into this part of our life, is to refine, redefine our own purpose in this life.
Yes.
And sometimes that can be, sometimes the simplest thing can be so profound, whether it's helping your, grandchildren, nieces and nephews, and having a beautiful family experience. That's a profound purpose to live
Mhm.
for.
Yes.
There could be other things like, you know, I think our society, because age is something we run from, age is something that we kind of put off into a corner that we don't have to see. And then rather, some more older traditional cultures, age was something to be celebrated. It's like you accomplish something if you
To be
age.
revered, yes.
And so I think there might be, you know, so I think we need a little bit of both. That the the fear of aging, the fear of what comes with it, is not something to be run from.
I agree. I think a lot of people are afraid that they're gonna decline, that they're going to be useless to society anymore, and I really like what you said about, the paradigms shifting a bit. The healthier we are, the longer we live, and, I thought about it this afternoon. If I live to be 100, I've got 35 years left.
Right.
That's as long as my corporate career,
You're right.
right? And that's a lot of time to make a difference, to have a different purpose. And like you said, it could be your purpose could be more joy. Your purpose could be more better relationships. Your purpose could be making a lot of money. Your purpose could be any number of things. But finding it, I think, is what's going to keep you young.
Well, I think you just hit on the key point. And I I say this often, is like, happiness about oneself is the greatest cosmetic, the greatest elixir, whatever you want to call it.
Yes.
It truly is.
Yeah.
And so, for me, going through all that I went through, to really come to this place of self-love, to really
Mhm.
appreciate myself, appreciate, you know, all the good things that have come into my life,
Mm.
that's a new experience, but that's actually so beautiful. And I think it is equally available. And
Mm.
also it's a process. It's not like I've arrived. It's an
Right.
ongoing thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, that's awesome. Well, I wanna thank you for being my guest today on Defying Expectations Over 60. I wish you a happy home in Phoenix as well as in Los Angeles, and I know that you and I are gonna meet in person someday once my travel schedule slows down and we find a time to, get together, maybe have some coffee.
That would be
So
wonderful. And thank you for having me on your channel and your show.
yeah, my pleasure, my pleasure. Okay, I will, if you wanna get in touch with Tawny, I will put, some contact information for her in the comments. We are live right now to Facebook, YouTube, and LinkedIn, so I will put them in all of those places depending on where you're watching. If you are watching the replay, please put hashtag replay in the comments so that we know that you were here and weren't able to catch us live. We're live every week at 11 a.m. Pacific time on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. Defying Expectations Over 60. Tawny, thank you so much.
Thank you, Suki. It's a pleasure.